if I had a chance to, move into office and they gave me a year to straighten it out or 2 years, I would follow a program not dissimilar to what I did in 1994, with a few changes due to technology. And in fact, I do believe it would be easier based on technology. I think I could bring crime down faster. I mean, I developed the CompStat program, but the first 3 years it was in its infancy. By the time it got rolling, it brought crime down to a level that sets a record for the United States. No city has ever reduced crime even half as much as we did in my 8 years. But we did it with heavy reliance on technology. I've done it in other cities as a contractor, but American cities don't seem to be, they don't seem to be able to use it well. A few have, but a few haven't. But New York Police Department knows how to use it, and they're not using it properly right now. And we could quickly get a big reduction by a much more efficient use of our police. Have them in the right place at the right time, dealing with the correct crimes rather than kind of guessing at things and making promises. And the mayor tends to be, he tends to make big promises and then he doesn't follow through. Very bad thing to do. I have a chapter in my book on leadership, which was a bestseller, saying under promise and over deliver. And the mayor over promises and under delivers. Like, I'm going to make New York City into the great immigrant city of the world. Now it's becoming almost, people are comparing it to a third world city. Well, it isn't, but compared to what it used to be, it's a disaster. And our budget is beyond recognition. It's costing us hundreds of millions and billions of dollars for these 100,000 refugees. Things in New York tend to cost twice as much as other American cities, even other crooked Democratic cities. Don't be surprised about why that is. It's been that way since Boss Tweed. Of course, New York City has more crooks than any place else. Going back to the Democrat Party of Boss Tweed, this is a Democrat machine city with all the worst aspects of it, and probably the longest term built-in corruption. Kind of made my reputation by exposing that. I became mayor because I convicted so many people that were close to the prior mayor. And that corruption exists today. So if New York buys a COVID test, we pay $600 million. If California does, they pay $300 million for the same test, and that $300 million becomes a kickback. That is an actual case I'm telling you about. That's a reality. It happened 2 years ago. We're paying one contractor $450 million to help us with the homeless refugees, but we don't quite know what he does, and he just ran away. And he may, I don't want to say this incorrectly, but I'm told his name is Capone, which would really be odd. But it's a very poorly run disaster of a city right now. And it is the most complicated city in the world. And what it needs as a mayor is a very, very charismatic, but very good manager. That's what LaGuardia was. To some extent, that's what Koch was. And that's what I was, and Bloomberg. The numbers are not unprecedented. The nature and the type of illegal immigrant is. And the mayor doesn't seem to understand that at all, because he hasn't been down to the border. He's refused requests by the governor of Texas to go look at it. I used to be in charge of immigration on the federal level, so I know it like the back of my hand. This is not the same immigrant of the 1980s or 1990s. First of all, they're not all Mexican. In fact, the most recent group of Venezuelan. Second, we have little or nothing to do with vetting them. Biden has gotten out of that business. In fact, we escort them in, which is a total desecration of the role of Border Patrol. But they are vetted. They're vetted by the Mexican cartels, who are laid out right across the border on the Mexican side. I could show you, if I had a map, I could show you where they are. They're like, think of them as toll booths to come into the United States, but they're being run by Mexican organized criminals who specialize in human trafficking, bringing a fentanyl into the United States, and also assisting. They have for 25 years ISIS. ISIS wants to get a couple of terrorists in. They give the Sinaloa cartel big money. The Sinaloa cartel creates a diversion. All the border patrol go that way, and they get 30 ISIS in that way. The last year, just to show you, this is not just my hypothesis, we're finding many more ISIS, Islamic extremist terrorists in the United States than any time since before September 11. This September 11, I would say, was the first one where the country is more dangerous than it was before September 11. That's due to Biden's open border. And this is a Biden policy. The border was closed under Trump. He had difficulties the first couple of years, had a big number his second or third year. But by the fourth year, the third and fourth year, he had some remarkable victories. Numbers went way down. The fentanyl numbers went way down, which means we saved lives. But the biggest thing that he did, he replicated something Ronald Reagan did with Haiti. He got the Mexicans to agree to allow us to examine the refugees, asylees, whatever, on their side of the border. So they didn't end up becoming Americans before they made their case that they were entitled to be. And that's what it is here. They come in, they say they're fleeing political persecution. We give them a court date 3 years later, and they never show up. And we never find out, really, are they fleeing political persecution, or are they just running away because they're poor? Or are they here to deliver fentanyl? Or are they here to deliver children? Or are they here to rape people like the two that just raped people in Buffalo, New York? This is a much, the sample, if you want to look at it this way, is much more skewed toward criminals because it's being selected by criminals. See, in the old days, it was more driven by money and jobs. So the Mexicans would come in to work on the farms, and they come in to work in the restaurants. Yeah, sure, criminals snuck in with them, but it wasn't, that was the secondary purpose. Think of it as being flipped now. The primary purpose is criminal exploitation of our border by a very large, very well-financed, very sophisticated, organized crime group with big, big help of China. You could consider that China is at war with the United States. Last year, they killed 70,000 of us with drugs, fentanyl, but they never had to shoot anybody.
No.
And they didn't get shot back at, but 70,000 Americans are dead, and China made billions. This is a great deal for China, and it's a great deal for the Islamic extremist terrorists. Those are the two big financiers of the Mexican cartels.
Eric Adams, I think, and some other New York Democrats had some interesting things to say about the Biden administration. I know that he's recently thrown a bit more support behind some of the announcements, but do you think overall it does show kind of a blue on blue between Washington and New York, a real difference in outlook, and maybe the president is letting down the people of New York by taking the stance he is?
Yeah, and what it does is it shows he's letting down the people of America. I mean, New York is his strongest bastion of support, maybe Los Angeles. He came here the other day, and I watched him drive through the streets. He drove right in front of my radio station. Not a single person applauded him. Now, this would be like Trump driving through Texas, or Trump driving through Mississippi, or Trump driving through Alabama, or Trump driving through Nebraska. You know, these are places where Trump gets 80% of the vote, and any Democrat Just put up the word Democrat and they'll yell and scream and kiss you. These people are angry at him. And they know it's him. He can't escape this. Largely because they lied so much. Mayorkas has done him a terrible disservice by saying things like the border is secure. And then right behind him, you see people coming over the border.